Hey, Hound Dogs, I'm David Hankins,
I'm Paul Hankins. I'm Trevor Hankins.
and you're on the air with Power Squared. Tonight we have Heidi Neunhoffer. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
An artist known for her work on
Lorcana.
Lorcana. See, I mispronounced something. Uh, so, welcome to the show. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We were discussing that we were both went to North Texas State, or you went to the University of North Texas. I went to North Texas State, same place.
Yeah.
Years apart, I'm sure. And so we have a little bit of a Texas thing going. But,
Yeah.
so thank you. And we met you at Pasadena Comic Con a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Was that a success for you?
It was a nice little show to do for one day. I didn't lose money on it, so that's always
Oh,
a win.
I haven't been to a convention yet where we've actually made the money back, but
Man.
that's not the point. But
Yeah.
We also haven't been tabling as long. So.
no, we haven't. But it's still because we lose money every time. It kind of let's do it again. Anyway, well, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
I know the boys were very anxious to have you on because they appreciate your artwork.
Yes.
So I'll let you guys.
All right. Uh, so, when did you discover that you wanted to be an artist?
Oh gosh. I mean, I was always interested in drawing and art, like since I was a kid, basically. So, like, the short answer is forever.
All right.
When I was a kid, I was also really into like creative writing and just storytelling, and drawing in general. So like for a while, I was like, oh, maybe I want to be like an author, or maybe I want to do like comics. I When I got to high school though, I really became interested in working in animation. And so I kind of focused more on animation from high school onward. And initially I wanted to be like specifically like a 2D like character animator. But the idea that I had in my head when I was in high school was like I wanted to be it was for a job that like kind of didn't exist anymore. I wanted to like work at Disney back in like the Renaissance. I feel like this is a very common story for a lot of people who work in animation who wind up doing things besides character animation specifically these days. But I did actually learn 3D character animation at the second school I went to, UT Dallas. And while I was pretty decent at it, and I was like, well, all the principles of animation are the same whether you're doing like 2D or 3D, which was my initial thought. But when I was studying 3D animation, basically I was like, I still really want to draw. I'm having more fun like planning all the like the animation before I actually start it. And that was kind of when I realized like, oh, storyboard artist, that is a job. And I wound up deciding that I wanted to be a storyboard artist, long story short. And I eventually, after I graduated from school, I wound up getting a job, my first job as a storyboard artist at DreamWorks TV. I was doing revisions first, and then I was at DreamWorks TV for quite a while, and eventually did wind up being promoted to storyboard artist, and there you go.
Are there any artists that influence or inspire your work?
Oh yeah, for sure. Before I was working in the industry, I would say that some of the artists who influenced me the most, like stylistically, would include like Glenn Keane, Sergio Pablos, Steven Silver, and Aaron Blaze. In particular, just because I was always they have like really distinctive like Disney styles, and like a lot of those people I just mentioned were either 2D animators, or in the case of Steven Silver, not a 2D animator, but he has like a really like economic style, because he did like all the designs for like Kim Possible and Danny Phantom.
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of things like that I was inspired by, like from his style, that I would try to incorporate with the more like traditional Disney style, like with a lot of my early work. Um, After working in the industry, though, I would have to say that my biggest influences are probably my peers. Because it tends to be like whenever you get on a show with like a bunch of other like really cool artists, it's like, oh, that's how you draw, like that's the shorthand you use for drawing that character, or that's the shorthand you use for drawing that dinosaur. Oh, that's so good. Like that's how you do your roughs, and that's how you do your thumbs. Like that's how you draw like hands or eyes or something. I feel like I started picking up like a lot of things from so many people that I worked with. And that continues to be the case, I would say, where I'm always just like, oh, you drew that so good. I want to steal that.
Trevor studied with Steven Silver.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I took a class with him and also a few seminars, and I try to talk to him whenever he happens to be at a convention we go to.
Yeah. He's got... Oh, man.
He's a chill guy.
Yeah.
When you're doing an illustration, what's your artistic process?
So, yeah, like, outside of doing storyboards, which I consider, like, my main profession, I also do illustration. And my process for illustration is it's a lot different from doing storyboards, because whenever I'm doing storyboards, it's happening through time, and so you have the luxury of being able to tell a story over like several drawings. But with an illustration, you're trying to tell a story within a single drawing, and so that like informs a lot. It informs like the process like a lot differently. And so like for me, it's it's trying to break down the composition and trying to break down like what I'm trying to say with like this single image, like what all are the things that I need to communicate in this single image, like and that includes both like the posing of the character and like the expression. And if I'm not familiar drawing the character, sometimes I'll sit down and I'll grab a bunch of screen caps and I'll just like practice drawing the character until I feel like I have like a good idea of like how to capture that character's essence like a little better, instead of just like, I've never drawn this character before, I'm gonna just draw it once and see how it turns out. Yeah, and then I'll usually do like a thumbnail, and then maybe try out like the values of like a value thumbnail, where I'll be like, oh, I might do like these values and might do like this kind of rough lighting here. And then from there, I'll start doing the line art, or blocking, or if I'm doing it more like in a painterly style, sometimes that might mean blocking in like the shapes more, and then like refining it from there. I would say I usually do the line art first, though, at least especially with the characters.
Yeah.
And then just kind of like adding from there, like putting in flats, putting in shading and lighting and all that. And then for Lorcana, that process also it also includes like the art director and the art team and Disney, because it's Ravensburger and Disney. They're signing off on the card as well. So with each stage of the card and the developing of the illustration for the card, basically it's like you turn in your thumbnails. They pick which thumbnail they like, because you usually give them like a few different options, and then you do like a rough color from there, and then like that will be like sent off for approval. They might give you some notes, you might refine some things, and then there might be no notes or no revisions. There might be a bunch of things that they're like, oh, actually this set, the direction for this set is changing, so we're going to change this element. Or like, oh, someone who draws this character a lot actually has these notes, could you just like change this and this? And it's like, sure. And then it just continues to be refined from there. And this can also include with working with the art director and just getting like the lighting and the mood and the tone and like things like that. I feel like working with an art director can be very, very helpful, because I have done like a lot of illustrations now, but having, like I said, having been a storyboard artist like first, professionally, there's a lot I'm still learning. I feel like with lighting and color, I feel like it takes me longer sometimes than it would if I was just doing like a sketch. Like I can throw out so many different compositions like really quickly.
Yeah.
But then like getting to the refining stages, that I feel like getting it to a place where it's like this is good, I feel like that takes longer. But yeah, I do enjoy working with all the fantastic art directors I've worked with through Lorcana, because I feel like they've all helped elevate things a lot too.
Right. How would you describe your art style?
Gosh, yeah, I guess kind of earlier I like there's definitely like a Disney influence to it.
Yeah.
I usually, style is one of those things I try not to think about too hard. I know there's some people who like really they're like, oh, what's my style? I'm trying to develop my style. I feel like it's not really something that like you can like there's things you can always study to like push more if you like something in like another artist's work, or something that you observe in real life, or something you want to exaggerate. But I feel like style is just an amalgamation of the things that you like in other people's art, and like things you observe from real life. So I guess I don't know how to describe my style
Right.
beyond that, but I listed some of my influences earlier. I feel like the best I can say is that it's an amalgamation of other influences that I've had over the years.
All right. Do you find it easier to draw animals or people?
I don't know. Because I draw a lot of both, actually. Because I worked on a lot of shows where we had to draw a lot of animals. Like I worked on Spirit, writing Free. So I'm very good at drawing horses. I can draw a mind horse, no problem. And a piece of advice for all aspiring artists: just get on a project where you have to draw like hundreds of horses. You'll be able to draw anything. I always tell people whenever, and then the show I went on after that, I was on the animated Jurassic shows for Netflix, and I would always just say, like, dinosaurs are just weird looking horses. It's the same shorthand for a horse, but just the proportions are slightly different and kind of weird. So I feel like, yeah, like I like drawing both. And technically, like, I also view like drawing animals and people. I'm also like, well, the anatomy is technically all the same. Humans are just weird looking horses. No. I don't know if there's like some really cursed, when you start getting into like, there are differences when you start getting down to like more nitpicky things, obviously, between drawing human and animal anatomy. And then there's also things like if you get into drawing things like birds or fish, like there's other things beyond like mammalian anatomy that can start getting kind of weird. But it's one of the things where it's like, if you've ever seen those really cursed illustrations of like, what if a human had the proportions of a horse or a bat? And it's like, oh yeah, so yeah, like the joints on like a horse's leg, they're just in different places. Like they're the same joints, but they're just like the proportions are slightly different, and they're just walking on their toes. Or like a bat's hand is like a human hand, but it's like big, like takes up the it's so much bigger than the rest of their body compared to like a human hand, which is like not as big. So yeah, like I don't really consider either one harder than the other. There's just it's just like a different way of thinking about drawing each one, like a different way of putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, anatomically speaking,
All right.
I guess.
Is there one you like drawing more than the other?
I like drawing both.
So before we ask you questions about Lorcana, we wanted to ask about your storyboarding work.
Yeah.
So for those who are watching and don't know this, what does a storyboard artist do?
Yeah. So basically, the simple explanation of what a storyboard artist does is the storyboard artist is kind of like the architect of an animated project where we draw out the blueprint for what the animation, what the final movie or episode is going to look like. Because animation is very expensive to produce. And with live action, the way live action works, they do have storyboard artists for live action also. It tends to be more beat boards, like, or they'll only storyboard maybe like in like a thumbnail format, or like for the cinematographer, like planning things like, oh, we want something like this, or sometimes they'll have more detailed drawings, but they'll only, it'll be like more illustrative, and it'll be just like, we want a drawing that's like really, like if you look at the storyboards for like the original Jurassic Park, for example, I think those are a really good example of how film storyboards differ from TV storyboards, live action film, I should also say.
Right.
With the thing about film though is whenever you're gathering footage, whenever you're shooting footage for live action, you have especially nowadays when you don't have like a limited amount of film stock that you're using, you can shoot like as many takes as you want and then edit together whatever you want afterwards with those takes. With animation, you do not have you don't have the luxury of being able to just do whatever takes you want, because someone has to sit down and either draw or pose out 24 frames per second every single pose. Or if it's TV, maybe like maybe 12 frames, or maybe even 6 frames if it's really cheap, but like so with Disney basically realized this, and they were like, well, you can have an animator go straight ahead, but if we don't like the product, like you either have to spend a lot of money like completely animating it over, and like you might spend a lot of time animating a sequence that looks really good on its own, but it just doesn't fit in with like the overall story. So basically the process, that the way most animated productions are made, is that you have a storyboard artist who basically draws out all the major beats of the story. With TV, especially in the modern era with like modern technology, the storyboards can get a little more posed out, and it's kind of like a back and forth, kind of controversial. We don't have to get into all that, but they do tend to be a little more animated, let's say, than film, like feature animation storyboards. And it can also start to get a little into like layout territory, where you're like also trying to plan out like, oh, is this like, this is going to be the composition of the shot, so all these characters need to be standing here, here, and here, like blocking things out. But basically the storyboard artist is drawing all the drawing like not as many drawings as you would need to animate it, significantly fewer and significantly less clean drawings than you would for the animation, and then cutting that into what's called an animatic, which is basically a rough cut of the entire movie or the entire episode. And it will either have like scratch voices, or they will just eventually get like the actual soundtrack, and they will time the whole thing, especially for television. Television is very important to have everything timed out, because the budget the budget is literally like, this is the exact number of seconds that we can afford to animate contractually. So we can't go over or under. So we need to figure this out in the animatic stage, exactly how long this episode is going to be, and what all we're going to include in it. And then once it'll usually go through several rounds of revisions and notes, and like notes, revisions, and eventually it will be locked you'll get like the locked version of the animatic that is like, this is the final episode, just not animated yet. It's it's all like just black and white drawings, all the characters posed out, and all the action is happening. Like you can tell what's going on. And then they will send that to the animation, either the animation studio overseas, or if it's in-house, they'll just send it to the animators, and then it will be animated afterwards. And you don't have to sit there going like, you don't have to have the animator animate all this stuff first, only to realize it doesn't work, basically.
So, as you mentioned, you've worked for DreamWorks.
Mm-hmm.
Your website mentions Spirit Writing Free, The Croods Family Tree, Jurassic World, Camp Cretaceous, and Chaos Theory.
Yes.
How did you get started with DreamWorks?
Basically, it was so DreamWorks. DreamWorks, like, that was back in 2018, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah, DreamWorks back then, they had a deal with Netflix where they had like a huge streaming deal with Netflix where they had to produce like so many TV shows for Netflix at the time, and it was really kind of a streaming boom for the industry, and where they were just they had so many different shows in production, and they constantly needed people, and so it was a really good time to get into the industry because like I just kept I wound up getting like in contact with like one of the recruiters at DreamWorks back at CTN when CTN was still the major the major animation expo. How times have changed. And I just kept like applying and working on my portfolio like the year after I graduated from school, and I eventually after a long series of events, I did find my name was eventually on a short list to start out as a storyboard revisionist, which is the entry-level version of a storyboard artist, where the storyboard artist usually will be given like either half or a third of an episode in TV, and they'll be given, if it's a script-based show, which is what I've mostly worked on, you'll be given like your pages of the script, and you spend 6 weeks boarding those pages of the script, and then you move on. Once you finish that, you'll move on to the next episode. What happens after the storyboard artist has moved on to the next episode is that the director will get notes on the rough cut of the episode, like the rough first version of the episode that's turned in, and the first animatic screening is what that stage will be, and he'll get a bunch of notes, and then it'll usually be way too many notes for the director to do all by himself or herself, so they will have the assistance of the storyboard revisionist to help them address all those notes. And sometimes also the director will also have things that they'll be like, let's try like adding this or changing this, or let's do a version with this, and the revisionist will also help out with all those notes. So yeah, that was my first job at DreamWorks. I was doing revisions on Spirit, and I drew so many horses. And then whenever I was ending on Spirit, I got really lucky because they happened to have like an opening for another revisionist position on Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous. And that one was really fun because I did love Spirit a lot. It was a great show to work on. It was still like, we can't show characters holding guns even though it's the Wild West. Like, I think Spirit, I wasn't on Spirit at the time because I worked on the third production season of it. But like during the first production season of Spirit, there's a story they always tell where they ended the first airing season of Spirit with a cliffhanger where you're not sure if Spirit lives or dies at the end. And Spirit was also kind of like beat up a little bit. And apparently DreamWorks got like so many angry phone calls and emails from parents whose kids thought that like Spirit was dead. So because of Spirit, actually, DreamWorks TV, they instated a policy where if a character like looks like they might die, like you have to show, like during a season, you have to show that they're okay, like at the end of the season somehow, like, if they're not going to actually die.
Right.
So that actually informed like some of the reveals on Camp Cretaceous and Chaos Theory, where like a character was like, where it looked like they might have gotten killed off, but then it showed that they were actually like okay at the end of the season, like, or like implied that they like, oh, maybe they'll be okay, like we saw their fingers twitch or whatever. But yeah, like anyways, a spot opened up on Camp Cretaceous, and I on that show I was still a storyboard revisionist when I started off, but I was the locking revisionist, which basically I worked with like the supervising director and supervising producer on the locking, like all the notes that they were trying to get done before like submitting the locked animatic, instead of working with like a specific episodic director. So that was like, it was a little different from working with like just one episode director. It was a little more chaotic but kind of fun. And I got to like learn like a whole lot from that. And then I wound up getting promoted while I was on Camp Cretaceous to storyboard artist in the middle of the pandemic, because working on that show, it was like, I think it was like 4 months in, because it would have been 4 or 5 months into that show, because I started on that in November 2019, and then March 2020, we never saw anyone in person on the show again. Yeah. So.
Did you, from your experience, do you find the storyboarding process any difference between 2D or 3D?
So I worked mostly on 3D. There is a difference between 2D and 3D. I've done like a few boards for some 2D projects. But I would say that like with 3D, it can be nice. It can be nice working with 3D because you don't have to draw the backgrounds as much, particularly if they've already been modeled, because then you can just open up the set in Blender and grab the exact angle that you want, and then just throw that into Storyboard Pro and draw on top of it. And you can do like camera moves and stuff in 3D, but you have to be careful because you can't do too many camera moves, because there's like a budget. There's only a budget for so many camera moves, so you have to like, and so many effects and so many things, so you have to always like double check with the team before just going really crazy with your boards. With 2D, you have to be more careful with camera moves and things that can't be cheated, and also sometimes I've worked on 2D projects before where it's like we only have like budget for this many backgrounds. Like some of these backgrounds we're reusing it, so here's the backgrounds that you can use. And then like, oh, we need a background like this, but it's anyways. And then with 3D, the other difference between 2D and 3D is that with 2D, you don't have a problem as much like with incidental props where you're like, oh, I want this character to like be eating an apple. Like you can just draw the apple and it exists. It's no problem. With 3D, you have to double check with the team. Like, do we have an apple asset? We don't. Do we have something else similar? Okay, we can use a pear. Okay, we'll use a pear. So that can be another limitation. The other thing I will say that's great about 3D is you don't have to worry about being as on model. You just have to worry about the proportions being close. But being on model doesn't matter because it's going to be translated into 3D. It's going to be like, no one's going to be drawing over your boards or using them like as drawing reference like the way they would with 2D. they're only going to be referenced for like the emotion and the acting. Um, so you have a little more freedom with kind of using your own style or your own shorthands with 3D. So whenever you see like an animatic for a show that is going to be animated in 3D, it's really typical to see it jump through like everyone's styles who've worked on it. And that's just normal. Like even between like drawings, like if someone does revisions, like you don't have to match the original storyboard artist style as long as it reads, like as long as the intent of the action reads. You can have just like everyone's drawings go by in quick succession and be like, yep, I got the idea.
I was curious, is any part of your process done in analog, or is it entirely digital?
Sometimes, yeah, it can be nice to go back to drawing in a sketchbook. Sometimes, one thing I'll do whenever I get a script actually, or sometimes I'll be trying to thumbnail on the computer, and sometimes like there's just something about drawing on the computer sometimes, or drawing like a certain program where it just sometimes you just have like off days. So like switching mediums sometimes actually can like kind of get you to think like slightly differently or like more simply. So sometimes I will actually do my thumbnails specifically for storyboards. Sometimes I will do them by hand, like either sometimes directly on the script once I've been given the script, because sometimes it can just reading through it can be like really easy to go like, oh, this is the image that just popped into my head. I'm gonna just kind of like thumbnail that out really quick so that I have it here. I'm gonna keep going. Sometimes like I'll just like have a sketchbook that I'll be like, oh, I'm just gonna thumbnail out like this whole sequence by hand. But sometimes I will thumbnail out digitally too. It just kind of depends what headspace I happen to be in. There's something about doing it like by hand though, like just doing it with a pencil and making it really simple, where it kind of keeps you from getting too precious with it, because it's like, well, I'm gonna have to draw it again later, so this is just like the very, very like bare bones, like actual thumbnail size, like maybe this kind of composition that I have in mind.
Yeah, when I draw a comic, when I've drawn a comic, I find it easier to like sketch it out in analog, and then clean it up in digital.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, I have like one of my friends who also does comics. She also sketches out, like she does like the actual like whole sketches on paper, and then we'll scan them in and like clean them up digitally. So yeah, I totally get doing that also.
uh, Also, do you happen to know if like with how much technology has advanced, if digital is like the standard in the industry, or is there still a place for analog?
Man, so I would say with the projects that I've worked on, digital is pretty much the standard. Um, Mostly just because of the way the process is integrated, like the way the technology is integrated into the process on like the specific projects that I've worked on. I know that it's not like for Lorcana, for example, you don't basically kind of have to do the cards digitally because of the way the process works and because of the way they want all the layers and things. Like even if you did paint it traditionally, the process of painting it Lorcana card traditionally, it would be really unusual from the process that they have kind of standardized, and like what they expect from each stage and like how each stage works. And also you would have to digitize it anyways because of the way that they separate out all the layers and things. Like you have to separate out all your own layers. They expect you to have, as you're drawing, make sure that all your layers are separate.
Right.
So it would be interesting if they did try anything like that. Because I know with like Magic the Gathering, there's tons of people who still do like traditional like like you could buy like the painting that
Yeah.
that it took into the card, like but yeah, and then with storyboarding, I know there were still a few productions that were hanging on to still doing like the traditional doing the storyboards on sticky notes or like postcard kind of like style of storyboarding. But the way everything has moved to like digital animatics and everything being done in either Storyboard Pro or increasingly in Blender, where it's even more like almost like layout on some productions I know, where they're having you like board directly using grease pencil in the 3D set. It's like they're within the industry itself and within like a lot of the specific productions that I've been on, they it's not, yeah, it's just not as easy to do. I know that there can be like allowances. I know that there's been technology allowances specifically, because I remember on some of the shows I've been on, they have technically been shows where it's like, oh, we prefer on this show we're preferring to board in Photoshop, but if you want to board in Storyboard Pro, you can export it to this other the panels to this other program, and then they'll be imported into Storyboard Pro, and that'll be because like or Photoshop, I mean, but it on a show like on that show, it was specifically because of like the way it was edited, the way they needed those files for editing. I feel like on that show you could have gotten away with honestly just drawing them traditionally and then scanning them in. But the only problem would be that the only problem with that is that I guess I'm curious about that now. I guess so my tangent, the only thing about scanning in like boards that way is that whenever you're drawing in Photoshop or Storyboard Pro, you're not drawing directly on like the background layer, you know, like all your lines, like they're on their own separate layer. So so they can be like, if someone else needs to, like say the storyboard revisionist needs to come in, open your file and then like change something, they can just really easily like find the layer that you drew on and then like erase it and then redraw it. I could see like if you did do storyboards like traditionally and then scan them in, if you would have to either include an extra step where you like broke out all your line work so that their line work would be on a separate layer so that the next person wouldn't run into the problem of like, I'm trying to erase this and the background's also erasing. I could see like if you really wanted, I could see you could do that, but it would still have to integrate the technology is where I'm going with all this. You'd still have to be able to work it back into the technology that the rest of the production is using. Anyway.
When you've worked on when you've done boards, how is the work assigned for each artist?
Yeah, so I mentioned this like a little bit earlier. So whenever you're boarding on like a TV production, you will get assigned to a storyboard team, and each storyboard team, there will usually be between 2 to 3 storyboard teams on a show. And there's a director overseeing each team, what's called the episodic director, and the director also has a revisionist assigned to them, and then there will be from 2 to 3 storyboard artists per team. 3 is better. 2 is kind of crazy, but I've been on productions that have pulled it off. But I've also been on productions where they had to add a third storyboard artist because it was not feasible to split up all the pages between just 2 storyboard artists. Yeah, so basically, and then the way the bar schedule works on an animated production is there will be basically the storyboard teams will be staggered one after the other. So that you'll have basically 3 episodes, at least 3 episodes being made simultaneously at any given time. It will actually be more because of all the different steps that each episode has to go through. So an episodic director might be working on like, I don't know the math, but they'll be working on multiple episodes at the same time, because they'll be working on the episode, like handing out the script for a new episode. They'll be working on doing like they'll be working on doing all the notes for the episode that was just turned in, and then they'll also be working on the notes for like the previous episode maybe. But anyways, so the storyboard team, they will be given a script. They'll be handed out a script. The script will be divided up amongst the storyboard artists, usually by the director. And the director, sometimes you get to say, like, if you've read the script in advance, and you're like, oh, I really want to work on this part. Can I work on this part? The director will be kind and give you that part. But if everyone on the storyboard team all wants to work on that part, then it'll be up to the director to decide. And sometimes the director might just take that part for themselves. Because the director can also assign themselves sequences. And sometimes also the director will, I don't know if typecasting is quite the right way to put it, but sometimes the director will like kind of know, like, oh, this person is really good at boarding these kind of scenes, so I'm going to give this person like a scene with a lot of dinosaurs because they're really good at doing all the dinosaur action scenes. Or like this person is really good at doing like the really emotional like character heart-to-heart scenes. Or this person's really good at like this is a really dry dialogue scene, but this person is really good at like giving characters like a lot of business and like kind of like acting things like while we're trying to get through all this like exposition. So I know the scene sucks, but I know that you can handle it. Sorry. Yeah, and so yeah, and then it all like it's just a big old team effort of like everyone getting assigned all these different sequences and then doing their part and it all coming together.
How closely did you have to follow the script?
So, well, usually you do try to follow the script. Sometimes we had some really good writers, particularly on Chaos Theory. We had good writers, and also on Chaos Theory, we also had I think we had a unique opportunity to be able to have a dialogue with the writers too. Whenever we had like kind of not changing the dialogue, usually it wouldn't be like anything like changing the dialogue, but sometimes it would be like either talking to the director or talking to like the writer and going like, so you wrote like that this character is doing this. What if we like for this reason? What if we kind of like change, like just kind of like change like the intent behind this like a little bit to kind of enhance this other idea that I had. They were pretty open to that actually, and also if the script didn't always like describe like characters saying this and doing this and this and this, like there was a lot of opportunity to add like acting like within a scene of like how like what a character is doing while they're like talking to another character. Like maybe they're going through something on like maybe they're talking to another character and they're kind of distracted because like what they're talking about is uncomfortable, so maybe it doesn't say this in the script, but maybe they're like the script just says they're uncomfortable. So the way you show that is that you show them like kind of not meeting the other character's eyes, kind of like rifling through things on a desk while they're talking. There's like a lot of things like that that could wind up adding like storytelling wise, like it's a lot of visual. I would say it's like a lot of visual things are the things that you wind up adding as a storyboard artist to try and capture the essence of the script and to like really support what the script is trying to communicate to the audience. There's also I would say that like scenes that tend to be a little more loose as far as like interpretation can also be like fight scenes or action scenes. there is a joke within the animation community that like you get assigned a script and it's like, oh, I don't have that many pages, but then you get to a page that just says, and then they fought. and then it's like, oh no, I have actually the longest part of the episode. Because you do have to like figure out like a lot of like fight choreography or like action choreography. And that's something that I would say, like, if you're on a good show, the writer will at least give you something to start off with and describe like, this character does this, and then they do like kind of like a move like this, and then like and then this action happens following this, and they don't just say and then they fought. But even if you still do get like a description like that, you sometimes you might open up the set and you're trying to make the script fit the set, and you realize, oh, the set was designed a little differently than what the script described, so we're gonna have to change some things, and that's usually pretty straightforward. Like that's usually like a pretty not straightforward, but it's a pretty straightforward reason to deviate from the script, I would say. And then it becomes a little bit of that can become a little bit of a nightmare, but you can figure it out, you know. Or there was this one case where on Chaos Theory there was this crazy action sequence that I was given that I requested it too, because I was like, oh, it's gonna be a fight between a Suchomimus and two hippos, and then the kids, like they're like trying to like they're also like caught in the middle of this crazy fight, and it wound up being like oh man, for my rough pitch on that, like I was like, oh, I really ran out of time. This wound up being like way more complicated than we initially realized. And when I pitched it, they were like, yeah, there's too many things happening. And like that's one of the parts of being a storyboard artist is like you're showing things, like even if you interpret the script exactly as it's written, sometimes whenever you see the script exactly as it's written in like that first ref pitch, you go like, oh, this isn't working. There's too many things going on. We need to trim this down. This isn't working when it's on the screen. It worked when it was written down, but it doesn't work visually. So the note that I got was, we're going to delete one of those hippos. And then I basically had to redo the whole sequence from there. And then I had a huge amount of help, like after I turned in that sequence, because I didn't really get to clean it up. I just turned in basically my roughs and some of my thumbnails, because I only had so much time to redo it. And my director and the storyboard revisionist, they took my roughs and my thumbnails and they made it cool.
All right, so now we'd like to ask you some questions about Lorcana.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these we asked you when we spoke to you at Pasadena Comic-Con, but I want to ask you again for the podcast.
For sure.
Okay, do you have a favorite Disney movie or character?
I would have to say Lilo and Stitch is up there, Treasure Planet is up there, Atlantis is up there. Basically, any of the movies from their weird experimental era. I also have a soft spot for Tarzan, because that was the first movie I ever saw in theaters, and I love the soundtrack.
It's a great soundtrack. Yes.
It is.
Do you play Lorcana?
I have played Lorcana. I haven't gotten into it like seriously, like entering into tournaments and stuff. Mostly just kind of casually. I'd like to play it more. We'll see if I do. I've like built like a few decks for fun and stuff. I do collect them.
Have you made any decks with any of the cards you drew?
Yes, I did.
Well, you got it.
Yeah.
So, how did it feel to get the chance to draw for Lorcana?
It was pretty cool. I got really lucky because they I just like happened like they were like looking for artists like to kind of add to their roster of like people they could contact for card art. Because like the way Lorcana works is it's not like a full-time job. It's just like you're just being contracted on like a card by card basis, basically. And they have like a huge roster of artists that they'll be like, oh, this artist might be a good fit for this card. They'll reach out and see like if they're available, basically. Basically, how I got into illustrating for Lorcana is I got very lucky because back when they were first staffing up like their roster, one of the art directors, or like, is he an art director? I think one of the artist management people was like looking for artists and happened to find my Instagram and DM'd me on Instagram and asked if I would like to do art for Lorcana. So I said yes. That was when he reached out to me. I think it was like I think it might have been before the first set had even like come out. I think it was after the promo cards came out at D23. So I knew Lorcana was happening, and I like followed Nicholas Cole, and I was like, oh, that looks like it's cool to work on. Oh well. And yeah, so yeah, I've been in their roster ever since doing cards here and there, and so it's been pretty fun.
Okay, so we realized after scheduling this that, as it happens, today is the OTS release of Winter Spell.
It is. I also
expansion.
just realized that earlier because I'd forgotten.
You drew a particular card.
I did.
Miko, Skittish Scrounger.
Which we have on screen.
Yes. What was the process behind this particular card, and are you a fan of Pocahontas?
So, man. Okay. Yeah, so the process behind this card, I really like, this is a pretty fun card to do. Miko is a fun character to draw. It was I remember the process for this card being very drawn out because I think when I was assigned the card, I was assigned the card right before like a bunch of holidays. So like I think I turned in my thumbnails and I didn't hear anything back for like a couple months.
Is that a good sign?
Yeah, that's pretty common around the holidays. I know that now. But anyways, my art director that I worked with, Samantha Ardini, she was really great. We worked like a lot with just getting Miko's likeness down, and then like the lighting and the atmosphere, and also adding like adding in a lot of like the amethyst shape language. That was another thing that got like refined a bunch, and kind of like we just kind of trying to like push it like farther. So there's a thing with Lorcana cards where even if you're like just casually playing it, you might not like notice like this in every single card, but it's something that like we try like the art directors and the set leads, they try to keep a cohesive, yes, thank you. A cohesive style. And one of the things that like keeps a cohesive style between the cards is that all the cards, all the different inks, those cards, they each have their own shape language. And whenever you're doing a card, like you're doing a ruby ink or an amethyst ink or a sapphire ink, etc., the shape language that you use in each of those cards is actually different. And if you start like pulling up like different cards and like looking, you can begin to see, you can begin to like notice like the similarities between the cards. So with amethyst cards, the shape language for an amethyst card is it's like spirals and crescent moons shapes. So there were some things like I don't have the card up in front of me. I'm like just kind of thinking about it from memory, but like the huts in the background, I initially had like referenced like how the huts looked in Pocahontas, and like how, because they were like a specific design based off of Pocahontas's, like the real life like tribe, like Native American tribe that Pocahontas is from. And one of the things we did was one of the edits we did to add more amethyst shape language in, because that design was very like, the design of those huts, like it was a lot of square shape language. We added in like a lot of like crescent moon shapes to the like the grass texture on the hut, like things like that, like a lot of like really subtle things that you'd probably not always like initially notice, but it's something that like you might like, it's part of like a more of like a subconscious thing, even if you're not like noticing it. I guess like on every card, there's some cards that are more obvious than others with the shape language, I will say, but I do find that always like a fun part of like a Lorcana card is like trying to figure out like, oh, where can I add like in some of the shape language of this card to like the design elements of the environment. That can be really fun to like try and like find creative ways of doing it. But yeah, and am I a fan of Pocahontas? So I feel like
Disney's watching, by the way.
so the thing, I'm trying to figure out like a nice way to word this. There's a lot of really lovely animation in the movie Pocahontas,
Yes.
and like a lot of great songs. I feel like Pocahontas is kind of a strange movie to me because it was made by a bunch of white guys who are not Native American. And also like romanticizing like a real life story, like a real life event that is not as great.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, without getting it anymore. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like
I
12
think-
years old and all this happens. And they made
Yeah.
her, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a way different story than what actually happened to her.
Yeah.
And so they sort of romanticized it and made it
Yeah.
Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
Moving past that.
Can I ask a question as a non-Lorcana player?
Okay.
You talked about amethyst,
Amethyst.
whatever. And there's different types of cards. I'm not familiar, so I don't know what you're talking about.
So basically, so the other card game that I play outside of Lorcana is Pokemon. So it's like, oh yeah, it's like the type, like the type of Pokemon card. It's like, I guess it's kind of their version of like, this is the element, like the element that this card represents. So there's 6 different ink. They're called inks in Lorcana. There's 6 different colors of cards basically. And each of the different inks, they have kind of their own, like, sometimes there's certain characters that tend to be like the same inks over and over and over because they fit they fit what that ink is like really, really well, basically. Like I think Ruby ink, for example, is like it's like characters who are really like really active and dynamic, and really like I'm gonna go out and get this. So like, for example, like they're doing like a bunch of like Incredibles cards now. Like Dash would make sense to Dash from the Incredibles makes sense to do as a Ruby card because he goes really fast. He's really dynamic. Like Amethyst ink tends to be like more magical. So like Merlin gets a lot of Amethyst cards. Let's see, like Steel is more defensive and like strong characters. So like characters who are like Hercules. Hercules has a bunch of steel cards. He doesn't always get steel cards, but he can have like a lot of steel cards because he's a pretty strong character. Amber cards are like, they tend to be like, the theme of those cards tend to be like togetherness and like communities. So characters who have like a lot of Mickey Mouse characters tend to get like amber cards. It's like a lot of things like that.
Is
If
that
that makes any sense.
is that the dominant color of the card? Or, okay.
It doesn't, it's not always the dominant color of the art in the card. That's another thing that like art direction wise they do try to like emphasize, because the card itself will have that color on it, and you can use the color in the card, but it kind of, if you got assigned like an amethyst card and you're like, oh, it's purple, and you just made it purple, it would it would be kind of boring, like like visually, to just use only purple. So it's like about like coming up with kind of colors that may include some purple, but also like really complement the purple of the
So
card.
it's more of a feeling you're going for.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm just asking as a non-player. So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, of course. That's a good question.
All right, so starting from Into the Inklands, you have so far drawn 11 cards across 7 expansions. How long does it usually take to complete a card illustration?
Oh my gosh. It can be so like if I sat down and I did, and there were no notes, and no like having to turn things in for approval with an art director, you could do like the illustration for like one of those cards in like under a week really easily. But like the actual like sitting down and like if you took all the time that I actually worked on each card, it would probably be between like 1 to 2 weeks. But the thing is you have to go through like the approval process, and that includes not just like the art directing team at Ravensburger, it also includes Disney. So it can be, so like each stage of the card, basically the way it works is they'll like assign you like, oh, we're at the thumbnail stage, you'll do your thumbnails by like whatever date that they say they need them by, and then they'll pick one. You'll do the next stage of the card, and then that's probably the fastest stage, I will say. And then from there, that's when it can get into like it might take a little longer. It might take like a couple weeks to hear back, to sometimes even months to hear back, depending on like whether the card is like a high priority card. Like sometimes they'll assign you cards like really early, and it's like, this technically doesn't need to be turned in for like several months. Like it doesn't even be finished for like several months. So this is not like the main priority right now. So I'll be like, all right, I'll just hang on and wait for whenever they give me back the notes then, and that's fine. But whenever a card is the final that PSD due date is coming up, they will start to give you the notes a little faster. But yeah, I would say that like I did have I had a couple cards that the process wound up being like pretty long, like several months from start to finish. But to clarify, I was not drawing most of that time on the card. It was just waiting for feedback is what takes a little while sometimes.
Is the process any different between drawing an action card or a character card based on what you've drawn?
So like I've done like a couple action cards, but both of those cards included characters, so it kind of really didn't feel all that much different to me. Because with Baboom, like John Silver is like still really prominently featured in the card, so it is. So like the only difference is that the camera is not like focused on the character in an action card the same way it is for a character card, was the main difference. And then like in Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom, Merlin is very small in that card because the environment is kind of taking like the main stage of that card. So it was more like kind of focusing on like the lighting and the environment, and kind of coming up with like how that was going to look. And then the same with Baboom also, because I also kind of like, I was the one who came up with like the angle of the ship, and I designed the cannon actually in that card, because they wanted like it was based on the cannon that they used in the movie, but they were like, can you add like more like steel shape, language, and design elements to it? So I did that.
I have a copy. Have a copy of Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom that you signed.
Yeah. Yes.
Not sure
I
if
remember
the
signing it.
not sure if the camera is picking it up that well. But I thought it was a cool personal touch to my magic broom deck.
Yeah, of course.
Is your future knowledge of a set limited to the specific card you're working on?
Yeah, basically. And I can't, I'm gonna say right now, I can't talk about any possible other
Right.
anything that hasn't been announced, but yeah.
Fair enough. Is there a Disney or Pixar movie, show, or character you personally would like to see in the game?
Yes, there's several that I would like to see in the game. I would really love Kim Possible to be in the game, and I would really love for Tarzan to be in the game. I know with Tarzan though that might not happen because okay, so Tarzan was in like the first Kingdom Hearts, right?
Yes.
And then it was no longer in Kingdom Hearts. The reason why that is because there's like some kind of weird rights thing where the estate of the author of Tarzan,
Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Yeah, Edgar Rice Burroughs. They didn't. I don't remember exactly like specifically what it was, but there's apparently like something with the estate where they don't want Disney like using Tarzan for like licensing and merchandising things beyond that movie, I think. Or like their rights to do anything with that like wound up running out.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, I might not be able to do cards for Tarzan. Which sucks because there's so many good Phil Collins song cards you can get out of
Yes. Long shot, I would personally like. It would be interesting if they managed to work Kingdom Hearts in there somehow.
I know. You would think. Oh man, you could get.
There's so much you could do.
I know. Who knows?
And I also have the one Oswald the Lucky Rabbit card.
Yeah.
Be cool to see more of him because I feel like
Yeah.
Disney hasn't been doing enough with the character. Is there a Disney character you like to draw, either professionally or for fun?
I like drawing Stitch. I do. Stitch is a pretty fun one to draw. I feel like it's probably whenever I do like card alters, that's like one of the most popular characters that I wind up doing, and that one always winds up selling a lot. If either it gets requested or it winds up selling really easily. If I'm just like, oh, I'll do like a couple of like pre-done alters to sell. The Stitches always wind up selling. So.
I will mention, as someone who likes running DuckTales cards, I think you did a good job with Lena.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'd love to do more Disney Duck cards too. I like the Disney Ducks a lot. Also, I grew up with like DuckTales, the old DuckTales, and I always out of like Mickey and Friends, I always like Donald the best. It's most interesting.
When we talked to you about Lorcana at Pasadena Comic-Con, you mentioned there are different teams for Dreamborn and presumably Floodborn versions of characters. Do you know anything about how those groups are decided, if there's any coordination between them?
Oh, yeah. So, I guess that kind of that gets into like developing like the designs for characters. So they have they have different teams for like actually doing the card art, and then they also have like a whole different team that actually is doing like all of the concept art, like all the set development, and like and that set development art will then be given to like whoever's like working on a card like in that particular set is like either inspiration or reference in some cases, to be like, oh, so this is like for Reign of Jafar, for example, like I did like several cards in Reign of Jafar, and they were like, okay, so here's like all this concept art for like Jafar's like castle and this and like all the sand magic and how the sand magic works, and we'd like you to incorporate element like design elements of the castle into the background of your cards, or like some of the sand magic, and then there's also things like with character like costume design, like for like Dreamborn and Floodborn characters. Sometimes the artist who is doing the card, they will also get to design the costume for the card if they're known to, if they're known as like a character designer, they can also work on that. But sometimes they will also just have like the concept team doing like the costume concepts like separately, especially if it like is integrated into like a specific set. And with that case, then someone will like design the costume, and then the costume will be provided to whoever's like illustrating a card with like a Dreamborn or a Floodborn like version of that character. So like I've done like a couple cards where like I didn't design the costume on the characters, but like I had like an alternate version of the characters, like with like Baboom and like Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom. They provided me with like the alternate versions of the character, like those designs, that I then like integrated into the card. So
Something we had asked David Peterson when we talked to him about his work on Magic the Gathering was when you were assigned a card, did they already have some idea of what they wanted the illustration to, what they wanted in the illustration, or were you given more freedom depending on the card?
Yeah, they with Lorcana they do have an idea of like what they want the card to be up front. So they already know what type of card it's going to be, like what the ink type is going to be. Sometimes they'll even know like the statistics of the card up front, or like maybe not the exact statistics, but kind of loosely, like it's going to be a card that does something like this. And they also know what rarity the card is going to be up front, because the rarity of the card can affect how the artwork is done, particularly like the getting into like obviously the like the full art cards, or the cards where like the art like breaks out of the
frame.
The frame, yeah. So yeah, that's important to know up front. And then yeah, so they'll usually so they'll give you the character, they'll give you like a description of like, oh, the character, the mood of the card should be this, like the character should be doing like an action kind of like this or like that. Like with Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom, for example, the description I was initially given on that card was, we want Merlin to be discovering like a secret, like a hidden room inside the library, in the Illuminary. So it was that one was very open-ended, because it was just like, oh, he's found he's opening like a secret bookcase, or he's found like a secret passage or something. And so I did like a few different thumbnails like exploring that. I think there was one that was like completely different from like the final card. With that card in particular, I remember where it was like they were like, well, maybe he found like he's looking down like a hole and there's like a spiral staircase. And I did like I did like a few different like thumbnails of the idea, and they eventually were like, oh, we think like the hidden bookcase is like the best one. And then they gave me like a bunch of like individual like prop designs, and they were like, you can either use these, or you can use like you can like be inspired by them. And so then I like kind of populated I like figured out like a composition with like some of those designs for like what could like some of the technology that he could be finding in the room. And then I kind of was just kind of like inspired by like some of the other concept art and the lighting from there. And they also gave me very good art direction on like how some of the design elements worked to keep it consistent. They have this thing called ley lines, which it's a really specific design element that they use it in like all the sets where it's usually like these glowing lines that are like on things like these glowing magic lines, and they have like a specific like way that they draw them that like I learned how to draw them on that card, and now it's like, oh, if I need to incorporate these, I can incorporate something that's like similar to that kind of like design shape language for that. But yeah, like yeah, there's some cards where the description like that they give me is so straightforward where it's like no matter who drew this, it would come out looking something like this. And I feel like where it's just like, yeah, there's not very many like variations of ways you can draw a character doing this. That's fine. But yeah, but there's some cards too where like where I've gotten the card and I where it's like, oh, there's not necessarily like a design or anything, but it's just like, oh, I'd like to try something like this, and it winds up working out. So, but it is still based on the description that they give you initially, no matter what.
Do you attend Lorcana events as an artist?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do a lot of like local card shop like signing events. So like there's like several like local card shops in the LA area.
Yeah.
Where if they're having like a tournament or like sometimes like a release day event, sometimes I'll get invited to go on out, sign some cards, meet people. Those are pretty fun. Yeah, and I have just gone to like some events just like for fun. Just like I've gone to like some pre-release events just to play because those are pretty fun. And I've also gone to like a couple of like casual like play sessions. So yeah.
If you were to go back and relive your art career, is there anything you would have done differently?
Not really. No, I'm very grateful, and I feel very lucky to have gotten like a lot of the opportunities that I have been fortunate enough to like come across. Like I think about it a lot, like where like, oh, if like this other thing had changed, then I wouldn't have been able to do the thing that I got to do with like my art career. Like, oh, if I'd like gotten onto this show instead of that show, then I wouldn't have been able to get on to like this other, like the show that I really loved being on.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't really like worry too much about what ifs with it, I guess. Because I'm also like, oh, if I had gotten to work on this other show, I never would have met like the friends that I have now and like things like that. So
is there any advice you'd give to a prospective artist?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things. I would say like it is, oh man, work on your fundamentals, do figure drawing, like draw things that you like to draw, and you'll get good. You got to do your 10,000 bad drawings before you start getting to your good drawings, because it's not something. I have so many people who always are like, oh, you're so talented, like you were like you obviously like you were born with this like innate gift for art, and it's like, well, I was maybe born with like some patience to sit down and like try and figure out how to draw things, because but I started out like drawing terribly myself. It's just that I I stuck with it and kept drawing even when I keep drawing even if like the drawing isn't turning out. I'll figure out what's wrong with it and figure out how to fix it and then figure out how to draw it correctly for the next time. It's just persistence.
All right.
We ask all of our guests, have you ever read Power Squared, which is our comic book? And you can say
I have
no.
not.
Yeah.
I have not.
All right.
We were right across the aisle. No, it's okay. We just ask everything. Is there, if people wanted to follow you, what's the best way?
Yeah, my handle is at Neunhoffer Art. I'm mostly on, I'd say Instagram is best for just art. I'm also on BlueSky and Tumblr. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep posting on Twitter.
Yeah, we got away from Twitter.
Yeah, I don't like some of the new features they've added.
Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, it's the easiest way to find me is at Neunhoffer Art.
No, okay. Do you want to just for someone that's listening?
Neunhofferart.
All right. Well, thank you for being on the show. We appreciate you taking the time to talk about your career in Lorcana.
Yes. If you are watching this on YouTube later and you like this, leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more.
All right. So until next time, I'm David Hankins.
I'm Paul Hankins. I'm Trevor Hankins.
And you've been on the air with Power Squared.